Where do you want to start this off?
I mean, how it all started, right?
Hey, it's Ben Wise, and this is the fitness movement. The fitness movement is brought to you by Zor Fitness. Zor Fitness is my company and my platform to deliver training content to coaches and athletes like you. The site has educational resources on everything from program design and exercise physiology to skill progressions and movement breakdowns. And in terms of programming, we have our online training program, The Protocol, and I also offer one-on-one remote coaching. It's all at one place, zorfitness.com.
Can we just back it up to the coffee?
Yeah. So we got coffee back in February, I believe. It
February,
was a
yeah.
long time ago.
Yeah.
How'd that conversation go? Do you remember?
Oh, I remember. It was literally, so where do you see yourself in 5 years?
It's like a 90-day review.
Yeah, it's like the worst interview question ever. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What are your goals? And literally I thought that day that we were going to talk about like the open training. I'm like, what does he want to go to coffee for? So I was kind of taken back by the question. What did I say? Where did I see myself in 5 years?
I think he said Florida.
We were going to move, yeah, because we were living the Florida life, and we were vacationing a lot, which was interesting over the whole course of this thing as well. I think once I actually sort of thought about it, after you asked me if I would be interested, and we kind of talked about the whole, there's not a whole lot of places that offer, the kind of training facility that we want to be in, the environment we want to be in, it's just, that's kind of what was missing for me, for sure.
I mean, you have a business and it's going well. Like, why do you want to open a gym?
So I work out of my home, and I coach people on nutrition remotely, and it's fulfilling for sure. But it's really hard for me to see myself. Well, it was hard for me to see myself growing, any bigger than in my basement. Being able to connect with people one on one and face to face is sort of, what I've always loved about the sport. So, while I do love my existing businesses, to take it any further out of my basement would just be really tough. I really miss the human interaction, the one-on-one aspect.
Yeah, I think, obviously having a facility that you can like kind of operate out of as your home base, even if it is like just thinking about like Macros by Ma or for me Zor Fitness, like just thinking about those two, like that's going to elevate them just by doing that. And then if you take that and you add the fact that you can have a training facility that like supports people in the community, that helps them out,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to only improve like their options and hopefully like their lifestyle and performance and health outside of that. Like, yeah, why not if you're already in the space?
For sure, yeah. And I always was curious, like for you, why, for people that don't know, you came to the gym that I previously owned, and trained there. And I was always kind of like, why doesn't this guy coach? Like, why is he not actively doing something of his own? And then you started Zor. So I'm like, boy, why is he not open to gym? Like, what took you so long?
I mean, I wasn't sure if I wanted to open a gym. I mean, when you
You just
open a
wanted to
gym,
play in one.
typically, yeah, like it's great. Like I'd love to like, be a member
Yeah.
and, it's great to be able to pay a membership because then you get to have the perks of being a member
Mhm.
and not the stuff of being an owner. But obviously, you know, I think for me it was like what I was craving wasn't available, basically. And that was for me individually, like as an athlete and also me as a coach. Um, so I think there's a number of ways that it was kind of like this is sort of an obvious route to go. And for me, also partnering with you, it kind of made it where I was not a 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. job. Because I don't want that lifestyle. I don't think you do either.
I like the 5 a.m. lifestyle.
So, I mean, you've been in partnerships before. You've been in part of several businesses. Like, Stacey, why is this guy any different? Like, why not do this on your own? You're more than qualified. Like, why even bother partnering with me?
I mean, listen, even being in a partnership is hard. I definitely can't imagine taking it all on my own. At some point you have to also live your life. And balancing that even with a partner can be tough because, you want to be there all the time, but you can't be there all the time. You have to balance it out. Do it on my own. I just, like I said, it's a lot, from running it to, you can't run a business and still be, in it and be, have relationships with your members and see people every day. And it's just, you can't do everything. So partner with you was like, how's it going to be any different? I had experience with you as a coach. And I knew that you were professional, really consistent, really had just all your ducks in a row all the time. So that for me was probably one of the first things that made me realize, this guy has his stuff together. I think that we could be successful for sure. I love the nutrition aspect and I do love to coach. But as far as programming, that's your thing. Sure.
Yeah, and I'll say on my end, it was like, so I was coaching you for, I don't know, let's just say it was a year before. It might have been more than that, but a year before I even approached you about any of this stuff. And I remember having this conversation with Brooke, my wife, and being like, I've seen her log everything every day and not miss a session, this entire year, basically. I think you missed like one session the entire year, maybe. And it was like that sort of thing just shows that, like, okay, this person can be consistent. They can show up when they need to show up. They show up when they don't feel great.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
You see a lot of a person just like in a coach-athlete relationship, like either side of that, like there's just two people in a relationship, basically. So not that it's all going to be smooth sailing, because even in that training year for you, like there's plenty of stuff going on in just life that pops up that like you have to deal with. So like if you're with someone for an entire season, like you get to see a lot of them, for better and for worse. Mm-hmm. And for you, it was a lot for better. So I think it made more sense. Like, okay, you have a great reputation in the area. You have the nutrition stuff down, which isn't, I would be the first one to say that's not like my number one area of expertise. Like I would much rather lean into the training side of things.
Right.
And not that those two aren't tied together. Obviously they are. But I think that's sort of a big part of the catalyst for me of what made sense to kind of enter into it.
Yeah, I think the more you focus on what you're good at and let somebody else do the other aspects of it and the other side, it's more of a team that way. If you're trying to coach people on nutrition and programming, it's like, all right, well, one is going to fall to the wayside and one's going to sort of lack in other areas. So, yeah, good combo.
Yeah. What's Lumber Capital Athletics? What's up with that?
Lumber Capital Athletics. Oh, man. Williamsport logging the whole industry. Yeah. And a lot of people get it. So I was a little concerned that somebody was going to be like Lumber Capital. But yeah, it's cool that people are getting it and they love it. They love that we went with that.
It's
that
cool.
Idea.
It's like a nod to like the history of the town.
Yeah.
So Williamsport, Pennsylvania was the lumber capital of the world at one point. Well, logging, I guess it's technically, I mean, there's still logging here, but it's obviously diminished. But at one point per capita, it had the highest concentration of millionaires.
That's so wild.
Yeah. So that's like our high school mascot for people who aren't around here, millionaires, which is obviously super unique. But it was all because of the logging industry of why people had all this money.
Yeah.
Now people know it for like the Little League World Series and a bunch of other stuff, but like originally it was like a logging town. So it's kind of a cool thing for that. And a lot of like our branding and our logo and a lot of that sort of stuff is sort of, geared around it being sort of, again, like that logging feel, but also like that sort of vintage, rustic kind
Mhm.
of feel. Like we're sitting with this is under construction right now, but we got a pallet of
Our
wood.
pallets.
Yeah, people should go check out the YouTube version of this if you're just listening to audio only, because we're sitting in our facility that is under construction currently. We're in the middle of putting up the ceiling. We've got the walls painted. The stall mat's down there in front of the camera. So we're in the middle of all that right now. How's the process going?
Well, it depends on which day you ask me.
That's so true.
The process now or the process getting started? The process now, I feel like we're doing well. You know, like you said, the mats are down, the paint's on the walls. Equipment comes next, and it's a steady flow. Some days are a little stressful than others, but it's just you got to chip away at it like anything else.
We were saying this, like it's so much of it is out of your control that's like the most frustrating part for us right now, and hopefully that diminishes as we get deeper into our business. And if it's like things that are going wrong day to day in the business, it's because you didn't put the right systems in place. But right now it's like, oh, you're dealing with codes and zoning and people who are getting things done that you're not normally going to work with. It's not like one of your coaches or somebody that's like in your circle. It's like people outside of that who like you're waiting on for something, and literally there's nothing that you can do to change those outcomes or like speed it up at all.
Right. Deliveries, like flooring, things are taking time right now. Weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. And so all that stuff, I think we've both been very frustrated at with times, to say the least. But, if you are opening a new facility, I mean, I feel like that's just kind of, or like, a building that's going to be zoned commercial or industrial, like if you're opening a space, like you're going to deal with some of that stuff. So let's back up a little bit. Obviously, like there's cool stuff coming up for us, like equipment arriving and
the fun stuff.
Yeah, that kind of thing. What was not fun, or maybe less glamorous parts of like this journey towards opening our doors?
Oh gosh, right off the bat, just the lease, to go negotiating. It sounds so exciting. Oh, let's negotiate. But it's like, you send it back and you wait. And then you send it back, then you wait. So for me, I am not a patient person, and the waiting game was really tough for me. That was, just not like you said, not being in control of it. Like that was really tough for me. The whole lease signing.
Yeah. I mean, I had mentioned this to you before, but I was fully expecting it to be like a used car salesman type thing, where it's like, all right, let me go back and then we'll look at the numbers and I'll come back to you. And it was like literally like I imagined it to happen like within, maybe like a sit down conversation, or like that takes a couple hours, or like let me call you back, or like, okay, maybe this will take a couple days, maybe it'll take 2 weeks.
Yeah.
5 months? Like, I think that's an extreme case. Like, I don't think most people who, if you plan on doing this, that it's going to be that, because we restructured our lease negotiations a couple different ways. We considered not leasing for a little bit. There was a number of things. I mean, we were obviously looking at other places in case this place didn't work out. Yeah. But like we were kind of settled on this facility in particular.
Yeah, we sort of we kept coming back to this one, right? Like, and I think that's why we did negotiate so many times, because we wanted to be smart and we wanted to make sure that we were making the best decisions for, for the gym and for the area and the location and the structure of the lease. So I'm not sorry that it took so long yet. I'm not sorry. I think we were smart about it, and I think that's important.
Yeah, and I that is what it comes down to, is like we knew what the numbers were going to look like, or roughly what they're going to look like. We know like, okay, this is where our threshold is for being smart and still being in a good facility. And also like you have to weigh off like, okay, if we just decide to, forget this place and we're just going to go with, a smaller place that doesn't have much parking, maybe not an ideal location, the building's just less ideal, doesn't have office space. So like there's all those trade-offs that it's like, okay, well then there's going to be less people that show up to the place. Mm-hmm. There's going to be people who aren't willing to pay the same membership fee because it's not like in a central location where they're at, or it's not close to their work. Or if you're at a facility and doesn't have showers, then people are driving back home before they go into work, mm-hmm. if they're coming in the mornings. So there's so many things to think through that I totally did not give respect for it at the beginning. Like, I knew it was going to be obviously a challenge just to like get all the pieces together, but the extent of what we went through was, I mean, I think everybody goes through it, but I also think that we were a little bit of a unique circumstance.
Yeah. Yeah. And it felt like we looked at 20 locations, and what did we look at? 3?
It was not many. I mean, again, I imagine it like compared to like real estate, like for like our house, like, okay, we like have this agent, they're like, hey, here's a good property. They send it to you and you go look at it and you can see a half dozen a week, and you can do that for a couple weeks if you want until you find the right one. And it was like, or maybe one pops up on the market all of a sudden, you have to like scramble quick. And I was like, man, I think this might just be a Williamsport thing, but like, and maybe it's just Williamsport 2022 thing, but man, there was like nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. And that was it. I think that's another reason why we kept coming back to this space, was we didn't want to give up the location. And in this location, there was very limited options. So it's not like we had 5 places to look at a week. So not like house hunting. It's tough. It was tough.
What do you envision this facility looking like in like when you just get into like normal operations? Let's say it's like 2 years down the road. Like what's sort of the vision for the facility for you?
For me, the vision would be, obviously we're going to run some set CrossFit class times, but we've got open gym all day long. So, I would really love just an environment where people are constantly, training towards a goal, training to be better, better than they were yesterday, the whole thing. Like, I love the fact that our space is going to allow for CrossFit classes and open gym at the same time. I think that's huge. Not everybody likes the class environment. So, being able to give people the ability to do that is really awesome.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like an either or thing. Like it can be a both.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I live a life of ands, not ors, Stacey.
I like that we can do both, and and I want people to feel like they can train competitively here. I want people to feel like they're being pushed, but at the same time, if today is not your day and you just want to work out and chill, that's cool too.
Right. Like if even if you're someone who jumps into class like 80% of the time, like you're like, hey, at like 4 or 5 days a week, I'm like in here jumping into class. And then you like come in and you're like, man, I feel like garbage. Or like I have, 40 minutes to get this workout in by the time I'm in the door to being out the door again. It's like, okay, the class isn't going to work for me today. Like, okay, either you can, do the class programming on your own time. Like that isn't maybe perfectly aligned with your schedule that on a particular day. Or like you can come in and like do a recovery session. You could come in and do the protocol, which we're going to have like on a TV in here regularly. You could come in and again, like hit some strength work before you jump into class, or like vice versa, like stay around after you go to a class and do some accessory work or some extra conditioning or go for a little run afterwards. Like it just opens up like so many more possibilities, like for people with like a variety of goals, which I think is like, that's sort of like what an ideal facility looks like to me, is like all, people who are coming under one roof who have these variety of goals, but they're all like goal driven people who, yeah, they can, it's a place where each of them are supported in their own endeavors. And it's not like you're having to like fit into this box of like, hey, like this is what a CrossFit athlete should be. Like this is, and like, if that's not you because that doesn't fit your personality type, or that doesn't fit the way that you want to train, or how you enjoy training, or what's going to be sustainable for you, then it's like, hey, let's figure out what's going to be a better option for you and go with that. Are there other advantages that you see of like this type of facility layout, the way that we're structuring things?
So, I mean, I think it'll be cool for if somebody does decide to join because they, want to be able to use the open gym hours. I think that it's a bonus that they can see, you know what, maybe I do want to do some classes. Maybe a group setting would be cool for me. I'm going to try it out. A lot of people come in and they're like, oh, no, the group thing's not for me. I don't want to be in a class. When you first tell them what we do, but if they can join as an open gym member and still see that environment and that it is a little different than what people think it is, then, I think that's kind of cool. Then they can, experience it without experiencing it, I guess.
Yeah, and even for like people who like just want to come in and just do their weightlifting, for example, and they don't care to be a part of class, you still like feel like involved in the community. Like when you come in, it's not like a Planet Fitness feel, like where uh, you feel like you can't make eye contact with anybody. Like you're
Right.
putting in your headphones, like
Mhm.
you're making sure no one's like watching you when you're doing your bicep curls or whatever, right? Like that's totally like not the vibe of like most functional training
Right.
facilities, and certainly not going to be the thing for us. Like the goal is for like when you to come in, for people to like know your name, to say hi to you, to be able to talk to you. Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's I find it so nauseating to go into a regular commercial gym now, because it's like I don't like I'm not comfortable. And like if anyone's comfortable in a
Right.
gym, it should be the people that like are in the gym all the time. And it's like, man, if I'm not comfortable at a place like that, how is anyone like
Sure.
who is
Yeah.
like a quote regular person like gonna be comfortable in a place like that?
Yeah.
And it's not all about somebody's comfort, right? Like obviously CrossFit's like known for having terrible workouts and like all that stuff, like the stereotypes that are out there. But like having this sense that like there's people around me that care about me, who aren't just like what, like judging you.
Right.
Like that was like Planet Fitness's big thing. I don't want to like bash them all the time, but like that's like that was like so big for them. And it's like, why are they trying to like squelch that stigma? It's because it's like it's there, right?
Yeah. I feel like it's exactly the opposite.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe that's just like a good contrast to what our model is. Like you can charge $10 a month when 95% of your people don't show up,
Don't show up, and nobody cares.
and nobody cares.
Right.
Right. And you
Right.
can, again, so it's like, if I just think about like everything that I wouldn't want, like that's sort of what it is. Right. So like turn that around. Like, what are we trying to create? It's like, for me, it's a facility where, again, a variety of goals can be supported, and people feel like they're a part of something that's beyond themselves, where they go and like people care about them and know about them, and that they have, owners and other coaches who are invested in
Mm-hmm.
their own success, and not just like the success of like us two. Like I don't want somebody to feel like, oh, I'm just joining and being a member, and it's just helping the owners make a paycheck.
Right.
Like that's the last thing I would ever want.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't know if there's any way to really kind of just like state that, but I think if you do a good job of like setting up your business like in the right ways, that you'll have a reputation down the road of that, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about programming.
Okay.
I might do either solo, or maybe I'll have you back on to talk to me, one of those two, about maybe class programming more generally, or how I do group training for like what I would consider to be like GPP CrossFit athletes, like the average class goer, basically. But let's get into that a little bit. So I've sent you sort of a sample week.
Mm-hmm.
Like I drafted this up.
Is it on the
I was
drive?
actually laughing about this with Chris Hardenberg the other day, because I said, yeah, I wrote this up in I think April, and I was like, man, I want to be a little bit conservative, so I won't make this like programming. Like I wanted to be like project the first week of us opening, and I put it on at June 5th as the first week.
I know. I remember June.
It's now
Here we are.
September. Here we are. So anyway, is there anything that stood out to you about that week, if you can remember any of it?
Well, I do remember reading it and wondering, like, as I started to read it, I was wondering, okay, is this going to be something that, because again, I've never been in a class that you've coached. I've only done your competitive programming. So right away, I was like, is this going to be something that Susie, who was curious about CrossFit, can jump in and do? And right away, I was kind of like, okay, there's the modifications, there's, scaling options. So I noticed that first. But I was just really excited about how much CrossFit it was for me, because like I said, I missed the class environment, and to sort of see that all laid out was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a balance for everything, right?
Yeah,
like
for sure.
if you do too much CrossFit, all of a sudden you have no time for instruction, which isn't great. Or people feel like they're like sprinting around from like, okay, I got to get to item C on here, right? Like part 3
Right.
of the workout to be able to, all right, let's go. Like, you don't have enough time to get into your accessory work. And like all of a sudden you're like trying to do too much. So I think there's definitely a balance of that. However, nobody wants to come in, even if it's a recovery day, and like feel like, oh, I didn't get a workout in. Like, even if it's a recovery
Right.
day, like you can still feel like, oh yeah, that was productive, even if it wasn't like, I'm laying on the floor afterwards. And with class programming, one of the challenges is like you'll have somebody who will show up, 3 days a week, let's say, and it might be every single time it's Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
So they only ever get a workout on Tuesday and then a recovery day on Thursday, because that's often when gyms do the recovery day.
Mm-hmm.
And then Saturday, it's like, okay,
Usually team.
yeah, team based, right? So they really only get like one like true kind of like normal CrossFit workout a week. So one of the ways that we've been thinking about this, and I think a good system that we'll put in place, is we're gonna run basically like a 6-week, what I would consider to be like a skeleton or like a template, right? So it's like these are our priority items that we've chosen over this training cycle, and those will rotate over time. And then that way there's 5 training days, Monday through Friday. Saturday will be sort of like its own programming set aside. And then that will get pushed forward 1 day each week and sort of offset. And that way, basically, the thing that you would normally be doing, say week 1 would be Wednesday, would be day 3. The next week, day 3 will get pushed to Thursday. So let's just say that it was like an interval-based workout that was featuring, hinging and pressing movements, let's say, on Wednesday. The next week, it'll be Thursday. Obviously, it's going to be different because it's like varieties or progression, however you want to think about it, is like that's always going to be part of it. But allowing that sort of structure allows the person that shows up Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday to get a different look of a workout and intention every single time they come in.
Absolutely. I mean, if Monday is always back squat day and I can't come on Mondays, I'm bummed. Like, I'm never going to get that.
Yeah, exactly. So. Or like you're the person who like, I don't really enjoy weightlifting, but I'm getting these snatch progressions every single Tuesday because that's what's on the docket for that day, and I just have to deal with it. Yeah, so I think that's one thing that there's obviously like a lot of things that you have to think through, from everything from like equipment to like the space that you have to how many you're going to put in a class. And like, there's obviously a lot of logistics that go into just class programming, to even like what are the appropriate scaling options based on like what's the intention behind it. But I think it starts with just like being super intentional and like thinking through a lot of that stuff. I mean, you've dropped in at a ton of gyms. Or is there anything that like either you found really valuable or really annoying at affiliates with their programming?
I mean, over the last since we've been through this whole process in February, I traveled quite a bit to Florida, and I've been in a bunch of different gyms. I can't really think of anything that's been super annoying. I feel like programming, it's been pretty okay. Nothing that I would knock.
Yeah. And so you've sent a lot of that stuff to me, and often when I have an athlete who I'm coaching remotely and they're like, hey, I'm going to be traveling, I'll be like, hey, jump into this class. Because oftentimes if I'm writing a lot of individual design programming, they're not going into class, or it's limited. And I think being a part of that environment, especially when you're traveling, can be really nice and sort of a break. So oftentimes I have people do that. And one of the things that I notice with a lot of classes is it's often just like a lot.
So, now that I'm thinking about it, now that I'm remembering, there's been a couple of classes where I'm like, it's like warm up, quick, and then all these pieces. And I'm like, oh, that was a lot in an hour. That was a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And with not a lot of warm up. So.
Right. And again, there's a balance. Like nobody wants to warm up for 30 minutes by the time they get into their.
Right. You shouldn't. Yeah.
So, however, the thing that I see a lot, it's like, man, if someone is doing, running and squats and thrusters, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, like that's a lot of contractions on your legs. Like, how does the average person who shows up to class gonna like walk the next day, if I'm being honest? Like, it's just like a lot. So for me, I think that's another thing that I'm going to be thinking about is like balancing the types of contractions people are getting, where it's not just all like, this is just going to be like a brutal workout. Like you can still get a brutal workout and like feel pretty normal within a couple minutes after the workout and be able to go on with your day. You don't have to be crippled the next day where you have to like hold onto the railing as you get down the stairs. Yeah. Like that's totally not necessary.
When I came back, then what's wrong with my
did
legs?
170 wall balls and a bunch of running, and now I'm like destroyed.
The other thing I will say is the open gym factor. There were a few times when I had things written that I wasn't able to do because it was like they turned the lights off after class and they were out of there, so there was no open gym time. That's another reason why I'm super grateful for what we can offer.
Yeah, and even just like the opportunities that a open concept facility brings up. Like, again, our main goal is to support the people who are in classes and to, provide the things that people need to be able to train effectively, who have, again, goals that are sort of a little overlapping with that, right? Whether that's a CrossFit athlete who's competitive, whether that's a weightlifter, whether that's, again, like an athlete. However, there's just like a lot of opportunities for a space that is open, right? So like, there's so many things, like even things as simple as like, okay, if we have community events, everybody can be in the same space, like literally in the same room, like within the same four walls, which is really cool. We could run competitions. Like there's just so many like endless things that we could do. Obviously, again, I've had people reach out like, hey, are you offering this, obscure class thing? And I'm like, no, like we're not. Number one, that's like, why would I spread myself that thin right off the bat? But also like, why wouldn't you just stay in your core competency? Like I choose not to prescribe macros to people. Not that I couldn't go find a calculator online and do it, but like there's people who do that like full time, right? And like that's not that that's all you do. I'm not saying that. But like in other words, I'm not a nutrition expert, so why would I pretend or like try to offer a service that reflects on me poorly, because that is not like the thing that I'm good at.
Right, and it's not your passion, so why would you focus on what your passion is.
Yeah. So if you want to do yoga, join a yoga studio, because we won't be offering it. Right? We might involve maybe some of methodologies that are worthwhile from that, but it's not going to be that, right? There's not a bash on people who are doing that, but not for us.
No. There isn't.
Cool. In the immediate future, what are you looking forward to?
Oh man, I'm looking forward to a room full of people. I can't wait. Barbells slamming, everyone kind of hollering for each other. That's what I miss the most. Just the community support and just the excitement of it. I can't wait.
It's going to be good to have some bodies and equipment in here.
Yes, it will.
Yeah. I'm super excited to get the doors open to, get the thing underway and just see. We've had a pretty overwhelmingly positive response just from the announcements. We haven't even given a hard opening date yet. Like everything's, again, it's not like equipment's here yet, so we can't be like, hey, this is the day that we're opening and this is when you're going to get billed and that kind of stuff. But yeah, as soon as we have more of that sort of information, I guess that's some of the questions that people have is like, hey, like what can I do right now to get involved? What do you say to them?
Right now, go to the website, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, and reach out. I mean, we're pretty accessible at all times for the most part.
Yeah, Stacey will get up at 3 a.m. to answer your messenger requests.
If you message me after 7:30 p.m., you're probably not going to get an answer.
Wise, you got some boundaries in place. But yeah, obviously this is not a scalable business, so we talk to people. Yeah, and I think, I mean, like you said, we've got socials up online, we've got YouTube and a website and all the stuff, right? So people can go check us out there. And really that's where we're going to keep you updated. And I would say mainly the newsletter right now, right? So again, we can't say, hey, we're going to bill you. Well, sign up here, basically. We can't say that yet, because if you say that, you have to be able to say, this is when you're getting billed.
Right. That's
you can't
coming.
just be like, hey, we'll bill you
coming.
whenever. Like, hey, just give us your information.
Yeah. Just give me your credit card. It's cool.
Yeah, just give me the card. No, hand it over. So as soon as we basically know that, hey, we got equipment here, and this is when we can actually open our doors. We have, they've been milling the the parking lot right now. They're like using a stone cutter out there or pavement cutter. And so if you hear that, that's what's going on. The one day that they do that is the day that we record this. But anyway, yeah, so in order to do that, we actually have to have a date. Right now we're thinking October 1st. That could potentially change, but I think that's very likely to stay in place because I think the road truck should show up within a week or so, hopefully.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be Christmas in September. So yeah, go to the newsletter, lumbercapital.fit. Get signed up for that there. We'll also link to that on all the socials. I'll link to that in the show notes as well as the YouTube description. And if you're just curious about renovations, also go check us out on socials because I'll be posting a lot of that kind of stuff. Also, this is going to be really cool. My dad's going to paint a mural on that wall right behind us. So if you're watching on YouTube right now, it's just a big white wall. But pretty soon it's going to have a skyline of Williamsport on it. It's going to be pretty sweet. Looking forward to that.
You can lift weights in front of the Genetti Hotel.
Just what you always wanted. We were actually sending all this stuff back and forth, like looking at this. It was actually from like Adobe stock, was where it originally came from, and we're like trying to figure out like what that building looks really familiar. Where's that from? Well, there's the Genetti. So it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be like again sort of a nod to the town and the local culture and the history of the place. So yeah. Any closing remarks for everybody, Stacey?
I don't think so. I just can't wait to see everybody. That's all. I'm excited.
Hey, it's Ben again. Thanks for listening today. To be completely honest, it's been really rewarding to have people who listen to the show regularly reach out to me, whether they have a question about training or just to say hey. So if you haven't done that yet, do it. I'm pretty good about getting back to people, and you can feel free to email me, ben@zorfitness.com, or message me on Instagram @zorfitness. And graciously, I've had some people reach out to me and ask how they can support the show. Number one way that you can support the show if you are a regular listener is just by rating the show. Most apps have a platform where you can actually rate it, and on Apple Podcasts, you can write a review as well. This is super helpful in having other coaches and athletes find the podcast, but also just having it grow and for me to continue to want to put out more and more content. Also, I'm going to be posting more full episodes of the Fitness Movement to our YouTube channel. So if you're someone who actually enjoys seeing my face when I talk, you can head over to YouTube and subscribe if you please. And if you're someone who is watching on YouTube, you have the ability to like our videos, but then you can also comment on the video if you have questions about the episode or if you want to suggest a topic for a future episode. And lastly, if you're someone who really does value what we're putting out, I would encourage you to hire a coach. For me, coaching is the bulk of my job, and it's what I believe I do best. So if you're an athlete or a coach looking to up your fitness game, be sure to reach out. You can message me on Instagram @ZorFitness or email me, ben@zorfitness.com. Thanks again for listening today. And as always, stay the course.